Okay, so we rejoin the project at the point where we've got the initial use case diagram and we've written some initial text for that use case based on the storyboarding we did. And we've got an initial draft of a domain model over here, which I've just relayed out a little bit. And now we're going to attempt to demonstrate how we might do this using robustness modelling. And what this is it's basically a technique for checking consistency between the use case text and our initial domain model, so that we can revise either or both if we find that they're not quite consistent. In other words, the domain model doesn't yet have exactly the right classes for realising the functionality that we know is required in the use case. And this also helps with getting terminology consistent. But in this case we're going to find things are pretty consistent already, so I'm just going to show how things work. Okay, so we read through the use case text a sentence at a time, or a phrase at a time. So we know from our storyboarding that there's going to be a student detail page, so let's put these boundary objects on. So this is going to be the student detail page, and later on we know that there's going to be a course list page, so let's stick that in as well. What I can't emphasise too much is that robustness modelling is quite an informal technique compared to a lot of your UML modelling, so don't sweat the details too much. We're using this as a sort of aid to thought, just to make sure that things make sense. Okay, so from the student detail page, the lecturer, so let's have a lecturer. This is going to be an instance of a lecturer at the moment, because this is a scenario we're reading through here, a sunny day scenario we're trying out. The lecturer is going to click on the Add Course button and the system displays the list of courses. Okay, so we've got a domain concept course list, and so it's going to be an instance of that the system is going to be working with here. That's a noun, so we can't connect that directly with the boundary object. Student detail page is also a noun. There's some behaviour that has to go in here, represented as a verb in robustness modelling. So we have a controller, and as is actually very common in robustness modelling, that's just going to be display. Okay, so the system is going to display the course list on the course list page. You might be inclined to worry about exactly what these lines are and how you decide which things to join up with lines in which way. I'm going to suggest don't. The main thing here is to get the information down and make sure we haven't forgotten anything. Okay, so I'm going to put click Add Course button there, just to make sure that the diagram is as readable as the text is and that we understand everything that's going on here. Okay, so far so good. From the student detail page, the lecturer clicks on the Add Course button and the system displays the list of courses. Okay. The lecturer selects a course and presses the Register button. The system registers the student for the course. Okay, so now what's going to happen? There's going to be a course concern, which is going to be the one that the lecturer is going to select, so let's write that one down here. This is now an entity object there. And there's also a student concerned. We might worry at this point, and it might be a good thing to worry, about which student is happening. But I think the answer here is that the student was selected before the beginning of this use case text, so that this is going to happen somehow. So there's going to be a verb, which is that the lecturer is going to select some course, the one that we just drew. The lecturer from that page, course list page, is going to select that course. And now the system is going to register. What is it going to register? It's going to register that student for that course. Okay, now at this point we've basically finished our text. Okay, you can read through the diagram in the same way that we read through the text, and the two things are consistent. From the student detail page, the lecturer clicks the Add Course button and the system displays the list of courses. The lecturer selects a course and presses the register button. The system registers the student for the course. Okay. And so far so good. We found that our entity objects are consistent with our initial domain model, so that's good, and we haven't discovered any major problems. But you might say this is now a rather odd place to finish, because you'd rather expect there to be some other screen that would tell the lecturer that that registration succeeded, or perhaps tell them if it didn't, in the not so sunny scenario, if the course was full or something like that. So you go back to the customer and you say, shouldn't there be a kind of confirmation page? And the customer says, yeah, of course there should be a confirmation page. And so now what you've done is you have discovered a new boundary object. You've discovered that there should be a confirmation page. Excuse my tablet writing. And that too is going to have to get displayed. And so we're going to say after that register, the system is going to display the confirmation page, and then we could add that into the use case text, and that would now be a better representation of what the customer actually wants. I won't try to write it because my handwriting will just get too messy, but you can see what we're doing. So what we're doing here is we are starting off with our first draft of the domain model, our first draft of the use case text, and before we actually start implementing, we're trying to make sure that we refine them both a bit to make sure that they're both as complete and consistent as they possibly can.